When 8-year-old Luna's headaches became unbearable, her mom noticed something moving beneath her daughter's skin. The medical discovery that followed left doctors racing against time to save the little girl's life. "Mom, my head hurts so much," Luna whispered, her face pale and drawn. Charlotte noticed dark circles under her daughter's eyes, a sight that made her heart clench. Although Luna has been complaining of headaches for a few days, her mother thought it was just a passing ache. "Let's get you to school, sweetheart. Maybe you just need some fresh air," Charlotte said, trying to stay calm, despite her growing concern. She helped Luna get dressed, but something felt off. Her daughter's movements were sluggish and she kept squinting as if the light bothered her. At the breakfast table, Luna barely touched her food. Her younger brother, Leo, watched with concern as his usually chatty sister sat in silence. "Why isn't Luna talking?" the 4-year-old asked, but Charlotte just shook her head, unsure how to explain what she didn't understand herself. During the drive to school, Luna suddenly grabbed her head and let out a cry that made Charlotte's blood run cold. She pulled over immediately, her heart racing as she turned to look at her daughter. Luna's face had turned an alarming shade of white and she was swaying in her seat. "Honey, hold still for me," Charlotte said, trying to keep her voice calm. Carefully, she reached over and gently parted Luna's hair, leaning in closer to examine her daughter's temple. To Charlotte's alarm, there was a subtle, pulsing bulge beneath the skin. Her heart skipped a beat as she watched it shift and contract slightly. A chill ran down Charlotte's spine as a dozen terrifying possibilities raced through her mind. "Sweetie, I think we need to get you to the doctor right away," she said, carefully tucking Luna's hair back in place. She could see the fear in her eyes, but the girl trusted her mother and didn't protest. "Sorry, baby," she said, softly, now heading toward the family clinic. She pulled out her phone at a red light to call the school, letting them know Luna and her brother wouldn't be coming in today. The waiting room was busy, but one look at Luna's condition and the receptionist immediately ushered them in. Dr. Peterson, who had been their family physician since Luna was born, examined her with growing concern. He checked her pupils, tested her reflexes, and asked about her symptoms. "How long has this been going on?" he asked, frowning as he made notes in Luna's chart. "The headaches started a few days ago," Charlotte explained, "but they've gotten much worse today and I've noticed something strange happening with her temple." Dr. Peterson nodded, his expression serious. "I want to do a few more tests," he said, calling in Nurse Janet to assist him. As Nurse Janet began checking Luna's vital signs, she, too, couldn't help but notice the subtle movement beneath the girl's skin. She leaned in closer, her brow furrowed in concentration, and suddenly her professional demeanor cracked. Her eyes widened, and she took a step back, her face draining of color. "Dr. Peterson?" she called out, her voice shaking. "You need to see this." The doctor approached, and as he examined what had alarmed Nurse Janet, his expression changed dramatically. "Call the hospital," he ordered immediately. "Tell them we need an emergency CT scan, now." Charlotte felt her knees go weak. "What is it? What's wrong with my baby?" "Mrs. Weston, we need to get Luna to a bigger hospital immediately," Dr. Peterson said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "I've seen something that requires immediate attention from specialists, but my clinic doesn't have the right scanning equipment. We need to get her to a more equipped facility right away." Charlotte's heart raced as she processed Dr. Peterson's words. Something was wrong with her daughter. Something serious enough that he couldn't diagnose it himself. "Okay, let's go," she said, scooping up Luna and rushing towards the door, Leo trailing behind them. "Mommy, what's happening to Luna?" Leo asked, his voice laced with fear and confusion. Charlotte didn't have the answers he needed, but she knew they had to get Luna the help she required as quickly as possible. In the car, Charlotte called her husband, Adriel, who was at work. "Adriel, something's wrong with Luna. Dr. Peterson is sending us to the hospital right away. Can you meet us there?" Without hesitation, Adriel said, "I'm leaving now. I'll be there as soon as I can." Charlotte could hear the worry in his voice, and she knew he was already on his way. Charlotte glanced at Luna in the back seat, her heart racing. Her daughter looked so fragile. What could be causing those alarming movements under her skin? She gripped the steering wheel tightly, trying not to scare her kids further with her own fears. But the unanswered questions were weighing heavily on her mind. What if something was seriously wrong with Luna? The thought of her little girl in danger made Charlotte's stomach twist with fear. When they arrived at the hospital, a medical team was already waiting to escort them inside. Charlotte held Luna's hand, trying to comfort her, while Leo stayed close by her side, his eyes wide with worry. Dr. Maya Grace, a neurologist, took one look at Luna and immediately ordered a series of tests. "We need to move quickly," she explained to Charlotte. "Your daughter's symptoms are concerning." As they wheeled Luna away for the CT scan, Charlotte felt helpless. Leo clung to her side, his eyes wide with fear. "Is Luna going to be okay, Mommy?" he asked, his voice small. "Yes, sweetie. Charlotte admitted, her own emotions threatening to overwhelm her. The doctors are doing everything they can to help her. The wait for the test results was agonizing. Charlotte paced the hallway, her mind racing with worst-case scenarios. Leo sat quietly, hugging his stuffed animal tightly. Occasionally, he would look up at his mother with a questioning gaze, but Charlotte had no reassuring words to offer. Finally, Dr. Grace emerged, her expression grave. "Mrs. Weston, we need to talk," she said, gently guiding Charlotte and Adriel, who had arrived just in time, to a private consultation room. The CT scan had revealed an unusual mass deep within Luna's brain. "It's not a typical tumor," Dr. Grace explained. "The composition is highly unusual, and we're very concerned about the rate of growth." Charlotte felt her heart drop. "What does that mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "It means we need to operate immediately," the doctor said. "This mass is putting dangerous pressure on your daughter's brain, and if left untreated, it could have devastating consequences." Dr. Grace sighed. Any brain surgery carries significant risks, especially with a lesion of this nature. There's a chance of complications, including neurological damage. Charlotte's breath caught in her throat, and she felt Adriel's grip tighten on her hand. "But you have to do it, right?" she asked, her voice trembling. "To save our daughter?" "Yes," Dr. Grace affirmed. "We have no choice. Without the surgery, Luna's condition will only worsen. We need to act now." The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. Charlotte and Adriel signed the necessary consent forms while the hospital staff prepared their little girl for the emergency procedure. As they wheeled Luna's bed toward the operating room, Charlotte leaned down and kissed her daughter's forehead. "You're going to be okay, sweetheart," she whispered, trying to convince herself as much as Luna. "The doctors are going to make you all better." Luna's eyes were half open and she reached out a trembling hand. "Mommy, I'm scared," she mumbled. "I know, baby," Charlotte said, tears streaming down her face. "But you're so brave, and the doctors are going to take good care of you." With a heavy heart, Charlotte and Adriel watched as they disappeared through the double doors, leaving them behind to wait and pray. The surgery felt like it lasted an eternity. Charlotte paced the waiting room, her fingers twisting the hem of her shirt. Adriel tried to keep Leo distracted, but the little boy's eyes kept darting toward the operating room doors, his bottom lip trembling. Finally, after what felt like an endless wait, Dr. Grace emerged from the operating room, her surgical mask still in place. Charlotte and Adriel jumped to their feet, fear gripping their hearts at the unexpected early appearance. "The surgery was successful, but we found something unexpected," Dr. Grace said, pulling them into a private consultation room. "The mass we saw on the CT scan wasn't a tumor at all. It was a cluster of parasitic cysts." "Parasites," Adriel's voice cracked. "In our daughter's brain?" Dr. Grace nodded solemnly. "It's a condition called neurocysticercosis, caused by tapeworm larvae that somehow made their way to Luna's brain. It's extremely rare in this country, but we're seeing more cases recently due to increased global travel and food importation." Charlotte's mind raced back to their family vacation some months back. They had taken Luna and Leo to a coastal town, eager to experience the local cuisine. "Could that be where Luna got it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Grace nodded. "It's very likely. Tapeworm infections are often contracted through contaminated food or water, especially in developing countries. The larvae can then migrate to the brain and cause this type of parasitic infection." Adriel ran a hand through his hair, his face etched with worry. "How did this happen? We were so careful about what we ate on that trip." "Unfortunately, even with precautions, it's possible for the microscopic tapeworm eggs to find their way into food or water," the doctor explained. "Once the larvae hatch and enter the bloodstream, they can travel to various organs, including the brain." Charlotte felt a lump in her throat. "So, our vacation, the food we enjoyed, is what caused this?" She thought about all the delicious seafood dishes, the fresh produce, the local delicacies they had indulged in. It made her stomach churn. "The important thing is that you recognized something was wrong and got Luna the care she needed. This isn't your fault. Neurocysticercosis is an incredibly rare condition, especially in children in this country." Adriel let out a shaky breath. "We just want to understand how this happened so we can make sure it never happens again. Luna's been through so much already." Dr. Grace nodded solemnly. "I completely understand, but the truth is, sometimes these things are simply unavoidable, no matter how careful you are." She paused, offering them a small smile. "But I can say with certainty that your vigilance and quick action very likely saved your daughter's life. Not everyone is as attuned to the subtle signs as you were." Charlotte felt a wave of relief wash over her. As terrifying as the ordeal had been, she knew they were incredibly fortunate that Luna had come through it. "Thank you, Dr. Grace," she said, squeezing her husband's hand. "We're just grateful Luna is going to be okay." "The good news," Dr. Grace continued, "is that the surgery went better than we could have hoped. Luna's young age and overall health worked in her favor." The relief that flooded through Charlotte and Adriel was overwhelming. Then Dr. Grace said hesitantly, "Would you like to see the tapeworm larvae?" Charlotte's stomach churned at the thought, but Adriel, ever the curious one, nodded. "Yes, I'd like to take a look." Dr. Grace led them to a sterile container where several small, whitish objects floated in a clear fluid. "These are the culprits," she said solemnly. Adriel, on the other hand, peered closer. His brow furrowed in a mix of fascination and disgust. "Remarkable," he murmured. "To think these tiny creatures were causing Luna so much pain. I know it's difficult to see, but the important thing is that they're gone now. Luna is resting comfortably, and we expect a full recovery," Dr. Grace told Charlotte. Charlotte nodded, her eyes glistening with tears. "Can we see her?" "Absolutely," Dr. Grace smiled. "She's sleeping now, but you're welcome to sit with her." With hand in hand, Charlotte and Adriel enter Luna's room, with Adriel carrying a wide-awake Leo, who refused to leave his side. Their hearts swelled with relief and gratitude at the sight before them. Luna lay in the hospital bed, looking tiny against the white sheets, with only a small bandage on her head as evidence of her ordeal. "Can I hug her?" Leo whispered, squirming in his father's arms. "Not yet, buddy," Adriel said softly. "Luna just had surgery, so we need to be very careful. We can't touch her head right now, but you can talk to her when she wakes up." Leo nodded seriously, understanding the gravity of the situation despite his young age. He stayed in his father's arms, his eyes fixed on his sister as the family gathered around her bed, grateful that the worst was behind them. Recovery was a long and delicate process. Luna spent the first 2 weeks in the intensive care unit, where doctors monitored her brain activity around the clock. The surgery site needed careful attention to prevent infection, and nurses checked her vital signs every hour. For the first few days after surgery, Luna drifted in and out of consciousness. The medication to kill any remaining parasites was strong, causing bouts of nausea that made it hard for her to keep food down. Charlotte stayed by her side, sleeping in a chair and only leaving when Adriel forced her to go home and shower. Her headaches, while less severe than before, still came and went by the second week. The doctors explained this was normal. Her brain needed time to heal from both the parasites and the surgery. Physical therapy began slowly, helping Luna regain her balance and coordination. The first time she tried to walk to the bathroom, her legs gave out. It was a harsh reminder that brain surgery, even successful brain surgery, came with a long road to recovery. But Luna didn't give up. She took a few more steps each day, holding onto her mother's arm for support. Speech therapy became part of her daily routine. Sometimes words came out jumbled, or she'd forget simple things like what she had for breakfast. The therapist assured them this was temporary. Her brain was rewiring itself, creating new pathways around the areas that had been affected. After 3 weeks in the hospital, Luna finally went home. But this wasn't the end of her recovery journey. 3 times a week, she had outpatient therapy sessions. She needed help with tasks that used to be simple, like writing her name or remembering multiplication tables. The doctors explained that while children's brains were adaptable, healing took time. It was 4 months before Luna could return to school, and even then, only for half a day. She tired easily and needed frequent breaks. The medication continued for 6 months after surgery, ensuring every trace of the parasitic infection was gone. Monthly brain scans showed her healing progress, each one bringing sighs of relief, as the doctors confirmed no new complications. Through it all, Luna's determination never wavered. Even on bad days, when the headaches returned, she kept pushing forward. Her bright personality emerged not all at once, but in small moments, a joke here, a smile there, gradually becoming more frequent as her strength returned. Leo was overjoyed to have his sister acting like herself again. He had been unusually quiet during Luna's hospital stay and recovery, but now he followed her around constantly, bringing her water and snacks, and appointed himself as her personal caretaker. The experience changed their family in unexpected ways. Charlotte became more vigilant about food safety, researching everything they ate. Adriel took fewer business trips, prioritizing family time over career advancement. And Luna, despite her young age, gained a new appreciation for health and life itself. The Weston family learned to appreciate each day together, knowing how quickly life could change. They still enjoyed trying new foods and traveling, but now they were more careful about where they ate and what they consumed. Charlotte often thought back to that morning when she almost sent Luna to school. How different things might have been if she hadn't trusted her maternal instincts and taken her to Dr. Peterson instead. Sometimes the smallest decisions make the biggest differences. What would you do if your child complained of terrible headaches? Have you ever experienced a medical emergency that turned out to be something completely unexpected? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.